And good morning. I'm Dan DeRosa with 19 News Now, coming to you from our digital desk. We're about to take you to a news conference being held in Stark County. This is in regards to a cold case, a body that was found back in 2001 in Canton. They're not necessarily calling this a murder. They're not sure what it is. This was a body that was found on an oil well road in Canton near Trump Avenue in Stark County. Now you can see over on the table there is a skull. There is then a clay sort of rendering, a clay sculpture of what they think this person may have looked like, but they've also now used brand new technology. It is state of the art to come up with a 3D rendering of this young man. They think this was an African American man, somewhere between the ages of 20 to 26 years old. When they put out the possible height, it's interesting, maybe somewhere between 5'5" to 5'11". That's a pretty big discrepancy, and they think the body may have been there sometime between 1996 and 2001. Let's take you live now to Stark County.
Our Attorney General, David Yost, for being here, and his team. We're here today with some exciting news about a cold case, or a case that is 20-plus years old that we've been working on. And we've had some great collaboration and partnership with the Attorney General's office, BCI and their lab, and they're folks that do a great job of. This is the second case we've had where they've been able to do a reconstruction for us. We will continue to collaborate with our forensic partners, with the BCI and the Attorney General's office, to bring to fruition cold cases here in Stark County. These technologies that were not available just a short time ago certainly have helped us in law enforcement to be able to put cases together. I will tell you that most good police officers will tell you there's nothing better than boots on the ground, people on the ground developing leads. But without this type of help, assistance, we would not be able to do our jobs. And so we applaud our partners and our friends at the Attorney General's office, at BCI for their work that they have done. Also want to thank our Stark County Coroner's Office and the Coroner Resnick for the work that they have done. They work with us each and every day. Quite frankly, we are very closely connected to our coroner's office in the cases that we investigate right here in Stark County, and they're a fantastic resource for us. We remain committed to pursuing all leads in cold cases, and I think if you followed our agency over the last few years, you'll see that we've been very successful in closing some of our cold cases, and we'll continue that. We owe it to our victims in our community, and I think maybe the General will speak to that in a moment, but we owe it to the victims of our community. We owe it to the victims of crime to continue to pursue the closure of these cases, and we'll continue that endeavor. I'd like to turn it over now to our Attorney General, Dave Yost, who I consider a friend, known for a number of years, and has always been very responsive to the needs of law enforcement in Stark County and across the state of Ohio. Attorney Yost, thank you for being here.
Thank you all for coming today, and particularly to the media. Getting this word out to the community is important because this young man, somebody loved him. Somebody out there today knows who this young man was, and we need the help of the public to be able to identify him. Everybody deserves to be known, and we need help. I'm really proud of our collaboration with all the law enforcement here in Stark County, but in particular, Sheriff Meyer has been just a wonderful partner on a lot of levels in a lot of cases. Many of you know this, but I make a point of saying it every time I come out for something like this. BCI doesn't do law enforcement on its own. We're here as a force multiplier for local law enforcement. We don't have any jurisdiction unless we are invited in by a local chief, a local prosecutor, a local sheriff. And that's the way it should be. Law enforcement should be accountable at the local level. But that being said, there are limitations to what a local office can do. Things like DNA labs are very expensive. Talent is rare. You're going to hear in a moment from a one-of-a-kind talent, Sam Molnar. We just don't have multiple Sams to go work in every police jurisdiction. She works at BCI and is able to we're able to multiply her value to the rest of the state. And that's what this case was about. Today we're talking about the reconstruction. But in fact, BCI has been involved at several levels with this. We are very proud that in the last few years we've developed the capability to do mitochondrial DNA analysis. I believe we are the only state crime lab in the country, and one of only a few of the other ones are in higher education that do that. We did a mitochondrial extract from the bones of this John Doe, and we didn't get a hit in any of the databases. So DNA without a match doesn't give you much in the way of identity. One of the very cool things about this reconstruction is BCI has been able to partner with The Ohio State University, and we have two of our academics here today that have been working with us. We not only are doing a 3D scan and then a printout of a 3D print of Sam's work, but through the software that OSU has, we're able to take care of some things that we don't know what really happened. We don't know what color this person's eyes were. We don't know what his skin complexion was. So by the magic of software, we can look at those variations and say, well, what would he look like if he had light brown eyes? Well, the computer can generate a picture that looks like that, or a darker complexion or a lighter complexion, which may aid also in the identification. So really excited about this and looking forward to good news as the community gets a look at this fellow. He was found just a couple of months after the Twin Towers were struck on 9/11. If you think back how long ago that seems, that's how long this person has been waiting to be identified. Somebody somewhere knows him. People loved him. We need to have closure here. So I would like to introduce, we generally don't put her out in front, but I think that in this case, you will enjoy hearing a little bit about the wizardry that Samantha Molnar brings to this project. And she's going to talk a little bit about, there's some science involved and there's some art involved, and she's the unusual person that is artist and scientist. Sam?
Thank you. So my name is Samantha Molnar. I'm a criminal intelligence analyst with the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, and I'm also the forensic artist that has done this sculpture as well as several others over the last few years. Basically, the way that I come into a case is if human remains are found somewhere in the state of Ohio and we can't identify them through fingerprints, if those are still available, dental records, or DNA. And if all of those leads fall short, then the case can come to me for facial reconstruction. How we used to do it in the past is we would take the skull to a hospital, we'd get a CT scan done, and that would generate a 3D image that we could print on a 3D printer. But sometimes the skulls wouldn't print properly, or the scans were very complex and it would take the printer a really long time to print. So what all the brains at Ohio State that I have had the privilege of working with have done is they've helped to speed up some of these processes. So what we can actually do now is called photogrammetry. We can take some pictures of the skull, and then these amazingly talented people can put it into their software, and it'll generate the 3D object. And it's much simpler of a print. If there's any damage to the skull or anything like that, we can digitally repair those things. And then we can print it. It's a simpler print. It takes less time to print. And then for the first time today, we are actually able to do digital renderings as well. So I will complete the facial reconstruction on the 3D copy of the skull. We can still preserve the original evidence. If additional items are needed to be submitted for DNA, we can still do that and preserve all of that, and then work off this plastic copy. Once that's done, then I take a bunch of pictures of my reconstruction, I send it to them, and they do the same thing. They generate a 3D rendering of my sculpture in their software. And then they can put that into another program where we can change hairstyle, we can add facial hair, we can change skin tone. Right now, it's not something that is publicly available, so it's something that we have access to, but our goal is to be able to put these images out with different hairstyles, different skin tones, different eye colors, things like that. So that's what we've done with this John Doe, and actually the previous John Doe that I had worked here in Stark County, we created new images for him as well. Sometimes when remains are found, they are just skeletal, so we don't know a lot of things. Sometimes hair is not even recovered. So this allows us to put images out with different hairstyles and different hair colors. The John Doe you see sculpted in front of you today may not be exactly what he looked like in life, because there are so many things that we don't know. If he had longer hair, then we can use the software to be able to show that. And then hopefully these multiple images or these multiple versions will generate somebody's memory, and maybe they'll call. So the biggest reason why I'm here today is to urge the public to call on your missing loved one. If you have a friend or family member that is missing, I just urge people to please call your local law enforcement agency, please call BCI and report them. So even if you don't think it's this John Doe in front of you today, if you think they could be a Jane or John Doe somewhere else in Ohio or in the United States, just please call and make sure that everything has been done for that case. Make sure that they have DNA on file. Make sure that there is an active record that is out there and being worked by the agency. So I'm just super excited to be a part of this. Thank you so much, Stark County, for working with us, and thank you, Ohio State, for everything that you do. And then I think I'm passing it off to the coroner next.
Yes. Thank you, Samantha. Mr. Burton, representing the coroner's office.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Anthony Burton, Chief Deputy Coroner, representing Dr. Russ Neck, the current Stark County Coroner. Our office is concerned with determining the cause and manner of death and the identity of the individual. In this particular case, we don't know the identity. We have to rely on the expertise of other departments that are affiliated with us, and I believe that we have a good working relationship both with law enforcement, BCI, and our anthropological colleagues in this case. I'd like to thank all that are involved in our continued pursuit to properly identify our deceased individual. There are many loved ones that appear to have vanished, and please help us identify this individual so that we can bring closure to those who loved and knew this individual. It's important that the community also collaborate with us in this endeavor, and in many cases they are the final solution. Today we have the technology to reconstruct the visual identity of the individual, but it takes the community to help us identify this person. Thank you.
Doc, stay up here. Hey, Doc, stay up here in case there's any questions. I want to take a moment to recognize a couple people that are here with us today. Joe Morbitzer, who's a friend and the director of BCI, and I thank you for being here. And Samantha, once again, we thank you. This is your second visit to Stark County. You've done fantastic work for us. We appreciate the efforts. General, we appreciate the efforts of your team. You have a great team, and they really help us along. About 11 years ago, I became the sheriff of Stark County. When I walked through the doors, there was no detective bureau here. It's unimaginable to me that we had no detective bureau. We have 370,000 plus people in this county. We needed to put something together. We did. And today is part of the results of us putting something together. Interesting piece about this case, I have my chief deputy, who was the officer on scene when we recovered this John Doe. And so we're still working it, and that's important for our community to know. We have not given up. The other thing is I have Inspector Jones, who's the head of our Detective Bureau and our investigation section, and Sergeant Johnson, who lead our investigators to helping solve crimes like this. And so our commitment to the community is we will not give up. We will continue to work. We'll continue to work towards the resolution of this case for victims. To the media, we need your help. Thank you all for being here. You need to put this face out there in the media. You need to put our message out there. We need the help from the community. You can get us that help. We need folks to call us with tips. We need folks to reach out to us if they may know this person or think they know this person. And with that, if it's okay with you guys, I'll open it up to any questions. General, you okay with that? Okay. Any questions? Yes.
I actually have several questions for the doctor, please. Two questions. One is cause and manner of death. Was that ever something that you were able to, or your office was able to determine with respect to this individual?
Well, from the anthropological evaluation, it appeared that the individual had a fracture of the clavicle that represented, based on its identity and characteristics of the fracture, that it was caused by a projectile, most probably a bullet. The projectile was, of course, not recovered, but from the appearance of the fracture, the expert evaluation anthropologically indicates probably gunshot wound.
And another question for you, sir, is given the state of the remains when they were discovered in 2021, can you give us a guesstimate or an idea of how long you would imagine they had been there when they were discovered?
That's been indeterminate at this point, but it could be a number of years. Yes.
Thank you, Doctor. Chief, I have a question for you. You were on scene when this individual was discovered. Can you tell us the circumstances of the discovery and what you found at the scene?
It was a piece of property. No home was on it. It was partially brush covered, wooded up. At the time, I think we were told, working with the coroner's office, is that possibly maybe 4 to 6 years. It'd been there, no time, no clear-cut evidence of that. That's about all we had at the time.
Sheriff, I have one question for you. Actually, I want to let everybody else ask questions here too. But Sheriff, in 2021, there was a similar case where the Attorney General's office helped here create a forensic model. How did that? Were you ever able to generate leads or make an arrest with respect to that case?
Well, we have not made an arrest, but we have generated some leads, and we continue to work on that case. Maybe Inspector Jones could speak to that.
Yeah, Inspector Jones. Shortly after 2001, after the press conference, then we worked with Samantha. I know Sergeant Johnson and her had several communications. We had several leads that come in. Every single lead that did come in, we followed up on. If DNA was available, we followed those leads. Nothing has resulted from that at this point. Although we do continue to follow leads. We get leads every day, and we're continuing to follow up on them.
Sir, following on that question, can you talk about the leads that you worked to track down in this and how with cold cases, there are so many challenges along the way. What avenues have you gone down to try to
On this
solve
case,
this case?
on this case, it was like the chief said, it was investigated in 2021. Very little information. Bones located in the 2900 block of Trump Avenue. Could have been there possibly for 4 to 5 years. Due to technology and some new information that has come out with Ohio State, we have learned some new details that we didn't have years past. So we're going to start following up a little bit more if we can get an identification. There's really nothing further that can be done at this point with what we have as far as the bones are concerned. What we're really hoping for is to generate some leads, identify this person. If we can get an identification, then of course we can find out who his family is, what location he lived in, and then we can work the case from there. But at this point, we're limited on what we can do.
Dan DeRose with 19 News as we learn of this new technology being used in this cold case in Stark County. Bones found that had clearly been there for quite a while, as we heard today. There's really kind of this 4 or 5 year window of when the body may have been put there. Here is another look, and if you're watching this on social media, we need you to share this. This may be the key that tips something off for someone. I remember a cousin who looked like this, that suddenly we just didn't know where he went all of a sudden, again, somewhere between 1996 and 2001. We did learn today for the first time from the coroner's office that there was a broken clavicle bone and that it had been impacted by something, more than likely a bullet. So that would indicate whether this was, and this may be why they're hesitant to say that this was a murder. Was this self-inflicted or was this a murder type situation? You didn't hear that word come up at all that I thought was interesting. The word homicide was never used, but that it appears that a bullet impacting a clavicle, the bullet was never recovered, but it is that new technology using, first of all, they use the CT scan, and then they put in all of that information into a computer that can then come up with this rendering to try and help determine who this was. Again, they believe it was an African-American young man, somewhere between 20 to 26 years old. And again, the bones were found in 2001, but they think the body could have been placed there anywhere between 1996 and 2001. Obviously, anyone who recognizes that should call the Stark County Sheriff's Department. If we have any other breaking news, we'll bring it to you here on our digital properties. We have Cuyahoga's Most Wanted coming up in just about 5 minutes. So we'll see you back here for that. Until then, I'm Dan DeRose with